travel the world. So come on with me.
I mean, I wasn't a terrible kid. I think that the thing is, I grew up knowing how to kind of play the system, you know, to play the game and be the little, you know, Eddie Haskell from Leave It to Beaver and Smiley preacher's kid when I wanted to. But
Your rebellion was silent.
Yeah, it was like I knew that I was evil in my heart, and so you know what that meant was that I didn't really want to have anything to do with the kingdom. I, you know, being a preacher is hard on a family sometimes, and I know that, you know, now I look back and I'm so grateful that I grew up, you know, next door to the church in the church parsonage, and that I was in Sunday school and VBS and church camp every time that I could be. All those things are great in hindsight, but at the time, you know, it makes for some rocky roads for a family and for me, and so I didn't really want to be a preacher. I didn't really want to work for the church at all, and honestly, all I cared about was music and art and story. You know, Jesus was there. He was a part of my life, but I forced him to the periphery as often as I possibly could because I had my own will that I wanted to exercise. And so it never crossed my mind that these things that I loved, these gifts that I had, whether it was drawing or writing stories or playing music, that these things could find a place in God's kingdom. And so anyway, but when I was 9, I don't know what happened, but suddenly I knew that I was broken and that only Christ could fix me, is the best way I can put how I felt at the time. It was all downhill from there, though, you know. Like I remember in high school, you know, Jesus was the very farthest thing from my mind. I just cared about girls and guitars. And again, it never crossed my mind to use my gifts for the kingdom until the band I was in broke up after high school. And the band broke up, and I ended up back home and had no clue what to do with my life. And then a friend of mine asked me to learn a song by Rich Mullins to sing so that he could sing it in church. He said, "I know you play the piano. Will you learn this song called If I Stand?" And that was the first time I encountered I encountered Christ in this music. It was like God reached through the music and rang a giant bell. It was a realization that I began to have in Bible college, taking an Old Testament survey class. And your freshman year, you have to take these classes that give you this overview of the Bible. And that was the very first time that the light bulb turned on, and I realized that the whole Bible is about Jesus. That you know, so often people relegate Jesus. This is the New Testament,
only
the
New
Old
Testament, yes,
and realizing
great divide between, yes,
yeah,
and not just Maccabees, yeah, right,
and realizing the way that Jesus connects all the dots. Like Sally Lloyd Jones is so good at conveying this in the Jesus Storybook Bible that he completes this story. That you know, if all of history is a story that God is telling, and if the Bible is an account of that story, then Jesus is the main character of that story. And one of the central themes of that story is resurrection, you know, and that's what my last record was about.
Sure.
And so anyway, yeah, it does. Like to me, like it in Him, everything falls into place.
He's a person.
It's amazing too that you can sit in a church on a Sunday morning and not be confronted with that. Sometimes it's because we don't have ears to hear, and other times it's because the church isn't necessarily proclaiming the fullness of the gospel. You know, that it is that He is the center of the story.